Because there's only one kick per stroke cycle, when it comes to kick timing, breaststroke is ultimately the simplest. However, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy to do. Let's take a look at what needs to happen for effective kick timing in breaststroke and how swimmers need to change that timing when they change how fast they want to swim. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. More than any other stroke, swimmers tend to struggle with kick timing in breaststroke. They have it, then they lose it. They have it, then they lose it. But just because kick timing is difficult to get right, it doesn't mean that it's particularly complicated. When it comes down to it, it's actually quite simple. What needs to happen is that the arms go and then the legs go. So what I mean by that is that the pull is going to happen when the legs are relatively streamlined, and then the kick is going to happen when the arms are relatively streamlined. Swimming fast is all about propulsion and resistance. So when swimmers are creating propulsion, they also want to be in a position where they're creating as little resistance as possible. When that happens, they go fast. So it's the separation of the pull and the kick that allows swimmers to create a lot of propulsion when they're in positions of relatively low drag. To do that, they have to be really effective with the speed of the arm recoveries and the leg recoveries. In the case of the arm recoveries, they need to be fast so that swimmers can get back into line quickly to execute the kick. And in terms of the kick, the recovery needs to happen fast so swimmers can get into a position to actually kick backwards quickly and do so effectively. So at its core, timing is simple. And when swimmers want to change how fast they're swimming, they simply change the separation of the arms and the legs. The more separation there is, the more space there will be in the stroke. That's going to lead to slower speed due to slower stroke rates. And the faster they want to go, the more they need to shrink that separation until it almost disappears, or in some cases, disappears completely. That allows them to maintain the effectiveness of the pull and the kick while using faster stroke rates. Let's take a look and see it in action. So these swimmers are swimming over 200 meters, and what we're going to see is they're going to execute the pull here while the legs remain in streamline. So right here, the pull, and the pull is completely finished at this point. They're not really creating much propulsion anymore, and you can see the legs remain really long, the legs remain straight, the legs remain in line. And so swimmers are able to execute the pull, create propulsion in a position where they're not creating that much drag, or they're creating as little drag as possible, which allows them to create as much speed as possible. And then they're going to quickly recover the arms, recover the legs, and now they're back into a streamlined position. And as they start to kick back, they're already in a streamlined position for the kick. And that allows them again to create propulsion with the legs here while they're in a streamlined position. And that's again going to maximize the amount of speed that they create. And the key skill to make it all work is after the pull and they start to recover the arms, you're going to see the arm recovery is going to be really aggressive so that they can get back into line quickly. And then the kick recovery, bringing the feet up, setting up the catch of the kick, and then hitting it backwards. That's going to happen fast too. So boom, fast heels, and it's only a couple frames here where the feet start moving and then they're in position to kick backwards. So timing in breaststroke, again, is ultimately simple. We're going to see the arm action here. There's going to be the pull, and that's going to happen while the legs remain in line. And then there's going to be a fast recovery of the arm and the legs. And then again, the kick is going to happen when the arms are in streamline. That allows swimmers to create as much propulsion as possible and do so in positions where they're creating as little resistance as possible. Now, since this is a 200 race, we're going to see more separation between the arms and the legs. So again, as the kick finishes here with this swimmer in front of us right now, there's going to be a pause. She's going to wait, and then she's going to separate, and then she's going to start to execute her pull. And then even with the pull, there's going to be a space here before she really gets into the kick. It's not happening as soon as she finishes the pull. There's a little bit of a delay, and so that allows her to, again, create more space in the stroke. There's more time between the arms and the legs. There's more separation. That's going to allow her to have a lower stroke rate, but she can still use the same timing. She still has the same effective pull, the same effective kick, but she just gets a little bit more rest within the stroke cycle. And so when swimmers glide, again, they're not changing the timing of the stroke in terms of the relationship of the arms and the legs, but what they're doing is they're allowing for a little bit more space between the arm actions and the leg actions in order to get a little bit more rest. And while that will cause a slight loss in speed, they get more recovery and it's a more sustainable stroke, and so it's more effective over 200 meters. Now, if we watch a swimmer over 100 meters, we're going to see the same basic timing, but again, the separation between the arms and the legs is going to be a lot smaller to allow for higher stroke rates. So this is taken from a world record swim over 100 meters, and so he's clearly going as fast as he can, and this is the timing that he's going to use. Already in this first frame here, we can see he's about to execute his kick, and he's already back into a streamline. So boom, he finishes the kick, and then once he starts to apply pressure onto the water with the arms, right about here, you can see that the legs are perfectly in line, everything's straight, and he executes the pull. The pull's pretty much finished here, and he's still in a really good line, and then boom, there's that really fast recovery of the arms, really fast recovery of the legs. They're happening at the same time, and again, that's happening so he can get into a position where he can kick effectively while he's got his upper body in streamline. And so if the arm recovery is really slow here, he's either going to have to slow down the kick, or he's going to have to kick when he's in a poor position. And then if he's slow with the kick recovery here, he's going to be in line, which is good, but he's going to have to slow down the overall stroke rate because it's going to take more time to get into an effective position to kick. So the recoveries need to be really fast, especially in the sprints, because that allows swimmers to maintain effective timing while still using really high stroke rates. And so in the previous swimmers, we saw a lot of separation between the arms and the legs. There was a pretty big glide. We see with this swimmer, there's zero glide at all. So there's very little pause in the front of the stroke, maybe for a split second as he finishes the kick, but even then he's starting to slide his hands out. He hasn't started to create propulsion yet, but he's getting into that position and then immediately moving into the pull. And then the second the pull's over, he's getting right into the kick, and there's zero hesitation there either. And so that glide we saw in the previous swimmers is gone. They're not changing the nature of the timing, they're changing the magnitude of the timing. And so what we're gonna see is we'll see more gliding behaviors over longer distances. There's more separation between the arms and the legs. And then again, in this swimmer, there's gonna be very little separation between the arms and the legs because he needs to get into this next stroke cycle in order to maintain a really high stroke rate. And again, if he's doing that with good timing, he's going to be able to create just as much propulsion. He's still going to be able to eliminate drag, and that's going to allow him to swim even faster. So taking one more look at it with the 200 swimmers, we're going to see more patience. They're still pretty aggressive with the pull itself. They're aggressive with the kick itself, but the arm recoveries are not quite as aggressive. The leg recoveries are not quite as aggressive. And so there's more space between that propulsive pull right here, between the end of it and then the beginning of the kick. And then after the kick finishes, there's more space, there's more time before the pull begins again. And so those spaces allow swimmers to rest. And when they're maintaining really great alignment, like right here, they can still maintain a lot of their speed. And so now they're not going to swim quite as fast. They can still swim pretty fast, and it's a sustainable speed. So that allows them to be more successful over longer distances. So again, still same timing, pull and then kick. But in this case, after the pull finishes right there, once there's kind of more or less no more propulsion at that point, there's more space between that point and when the kick starts. And then after the kick finishes, there's more space before the arms start. If we go back to our 100 swimmer, there's very little space after the finish of the kick before the beginning of the pull. And as soon as the pull finishes, those recoveries are super fast so that he can get into the kick as well. And even though the space, the separation is less, the actual timing, the kick is happening when the upper body's in line, as we can see here, and then the pull is going to happen when the legs are in line. That allows him to create as much propulsion with as little resistance as possible, which allows him to create as much speed as possible. For more on how to improve timing in breaststroke, check out the video below.